Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Localized Miami with your host, myself, Robert Ruano, and our guest today is a school board member from District 3 and well-known attorney around town and former state representative and former mayor of Bay Harbor Islands?
North Bay Village.
North Bay Village. I got one wrong. Mr. Joe Geller. Nice to see you.
Hey, Bob. Nice to see you.
Good. Thank you. I'm glad I could have you here on the show.
I'm glad I could be had.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me, you have got quite the resume. As someone actually said out here said the last famous Democrat also, which I hadn't thought about that but. So you've got quite a history. Tell us a little bit about it.
Also chair of the Democratic Party in Dade County for close to 12 years, from the special election to fill Claude Pepper's seat through the Gore-Bush recount in 2000 that I was a participant in.
Okay.
And so after that, I had some time as a mayor and a state rep, and now here I am on the school board.
So you were in 2000 when the recount happened. You were the Democratic Party chair.
I was, and I was an attorney for Gore. And if you ever see the HBO movie Recount,
okay,
there's an actor who plays Joe Geller.
Really?
Yeah, that well-known incident, the Brooks Brothers riot, as they called it, where some Republicans kind of shoved around and kind of roughed up a Democratic Party operative a little. That was me.
That was you. You got roughed up.
Me.
Was it in Tallahassee or here?
No, right here in the county
Elections
hall
department?
at the elections. I'm roughed up. I mean, shoved a little, some elbows, some blocks.
Huh.
There was a scary moment when I got surrounded, but fortunately the police finally showed up, and there was. Yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I remember that a little bit. I was in Tallahassee when that was all going on. I went up to Tallahassee. I wasn't there. I was there for some meeting, and just there was a lot of tension in Tallahassee too because of that. Did you deal?
If you ever see the movie 537 Votes, I have a lot to say in that one as well. Yeah.
Did you deal with a guy named Frank Jimenez? He was general counsel for Bush, right?
We saw him.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's not somebody I particularly worked with. But,
I just wonder. He's an old friend and fraternity brother. I knew he was on the other side, but I didn't know about all this. So tell me. So then you were mayor of North Bay Village.
Yeah, a couple terms.
Wow, that's great. And you still live there or no?
No. Now in Aventura.
Oh, okay. All right. And you were state representative?
8 years, 4 terms. Termed out in 22. Didn't particularly think I would necessarily be running for public office again after that. I had some thoughts about it. I've been serving one way or another for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But suddenly there was a vacancy on the school board. My district member, Lucia Baez Geller, who is married to David Geller, none that we've identified, but possible. I mean, not that we know, but his people and my people come from just about the exact same part of the world. Today, it's Western Ukraine.
Okay.
But it was, as we used to say, you said Russia, really Ukraine. But Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Poland Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and then Sunday was Austria-Hungary. I mean, like whoever had a good week came in and took over. It was called the Pale of Settlement in Eastern Europe. And like 1 week, Sweden had a good week, and they came down, and it was Sweden. So like whoever, it's today that area. It's the western edge of the Ukraine, across the river from Poland, and about 40 miles south of Belarus.
And your family came from there. What year?
Yeah, and so his too. About somewhere before the First World War, or my great uncle was the last one. He came right after the First World War, and he was the one who said, talked about when the Austro-Hungarian army came into town and made all the teenage boys like him drive their horse-drawn wagons.
Okay.
So he was the last. They came through Belgium, mostly through Antwerp, and like I said, so, my friend David Geller is from there. His wife is Lucia Baez Geller. When she ran for the school board, I had a lot of people call and say, "Oh, I see your wife is running," or, "Oh, she's married to your son, isn't she?" No.
No.
Isn't he your nephew? No, but family history says we had cousins named Geller back there, and David and his brother Adam do kind of look like me and my brother Steve. So
yeah, I wanted to ask that. Your brother Steve is in politics too, right?
yeah, he was 20 years in the legislature, my little brother, and he served 9 in the House, 11 in the Senate, and he's been a member of the Broward County Commission since 2016. He just got reelected for a third term.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. I assume obviously he lives in Broward. You live in Miami-Dade.
We used to be law partners too, Geller and Geller.
Oh, okay.
For 25 years.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me something.
Before we merged into Greenspoon Martyr.
Okay. Okay. You still work with him or no?
Well, we merged into Greenspoon, and I'm still there when he got elected to the county commissions to avoid any appearance of anything because Greenspoon is active there. He moved to set up a separate firm.
Okay. I see. Let me ask you something because I'm very interested in this because I read somewhere and the number may be off, but that enrollment this year was down like 13,000, something like that.
Way down.
What do you think is?
See, let me say this. This is kind of why I ran for the school board. I hadn't, it wasn't really a plan, but when my member left to run for another office, she's currently running for State House, but last time she ran for Congress, it was not a good Democratic year. I think this will be a better year for Democrats. So she's currently running for the State House, but it was suddenly vacant. And I just was very upset about what was happening in our education system. I don't like banning books. I'm against that. Mm-hmm. I don't like targeting vulnerable populations of students. And, there's multiple categories of students that are, I think, not being protected. And as a former history major, I hate teaching fake history. History is not all smiles. And bad things have happened in history, and we need to know them and remember them so we can try to avoid the same mistakes, that we don't repeat those mistakes. I think this is a great country, and glad for our Constitution and our protections and our Bill of Rights and the rule of law. We have to fight to preserve those things, to preserve our democracy, to preserve our self-government. And when I see those things being threatened by things like book banning and autocratic tendencies, I said, well, I can't just sit this out. I have an opportunity to go and try to be a voice at the school board. And I've tried to do that. I try to work with everybody there and move us forward, but with an eye on making sure we do the right thing.
And you think you've been successful? I know because you're kind of outvoted there sometimes, no?
Well, I don't much remember really being outvoted on something. Sometimes the elections for our chair and vice chair have broken along partisan lines, but I can't think really of much else that has. We have a pretty good group that seems to me to be pretty dedicated towards reaching a consensus, and most of the things we do have been by consensus. I think of very few 5-4 votes that have happened there, and in fact the one I can think of, I was on the side of the 5 and it passed, so it wasn't that way. But by and large, people listen to each other, and my voice is a contributing voice. I don't try to dominate those things. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has a constituency. But I think what I've seen by and large is a willingness to have some compromise, to try to soften some sharp edges, and to reach something that most of the members, by and large, feel comfortable with. Now, that's very different than what I experienced in the legislature. Yeah.
Now, but haven't they? What policies have they done while you've been there? Haven't there been policies in terms of book banning or anything like that? We hear about it at the state level, but what exactly? Because you know, and actually that's part of the reason why I started this show, because people talk about federal government a lot, but they don't know what's going on that's affecting their own community. And to that same degree, I guess, maybe I didn't inform myself as well as I should, but I was under the impression that our local school board had also taken some votes that were a little bit probably against what kind of the things that we're talking about right here.
There was something before I got there.
Oh, okay.
There was, I mean, I haven't seen anything that's come before us that supports book banning.
Okay.
I know some things have been moved where they're not available to students. To me, that's a functional equivalent. But that hasn't come before us while I've been there, or I would have been heard on that.
Okay.
I saw there was some controversy about my predecessor's attempt to honor LGBTQ Pride Month.
Okay.
And I attended and spoke at a meeting, in fact, that was part of the catalyst for me deciding to run also. But since I've been there, I managed to get something passed that said we rely on external funding. It started as federal, and my colleague said, well, what about state? And I said, that's a good point. We didn't specifically say Department of Education or anything, but we said we need these external funds, and we're calling for them not to be cut because we need them to serve these students. And they passed it.
Okay.
We did have the 1-5-4 vote to ask the president to reverse his takedown of TPS, temporary protected status, for everybody, not just for Venezuelans and Dominicans and Haitians, and Haitians, Nicaraguans. There were a number of groups, and that's the only 5-4 vote I remember, and the sponsor was a Republican.
It passed?
Yeah. Okay. And I had one just recently where we asked for, on this co-location. Now, I don't like co-location, period.
What is co-location?
It's where the legislature's passed something that said that charter schools can ask for the right to use underused portions of traditional public schools if the public schools are under-enrolled or underserved, which goes to the question that you asked me, and I'll try and get back to that. But it was passed in haste in the last session, and like a lot of things in Tallahassee, somebody put something through and doesn't really think about the real-world consequences. Now, like I said, I don't much like it, but I guess there could be some circumstance where it would make sense, but there are a lot of problems with the way they passed it. In fact, suddenly, on the eve of the legislature doing something, the State Board of Education just revised its rule to soften a couple of the worst things. But among other things, there's real issues about how it defined co-location. Now, a lot of speakers, just opposed to it came and said, no, end co-location. Well, the school board does not have the power to do that. That came from the legislature. But we do have the power. We had already passed some other things, even before mine. Mine wasn't the first. But then we were getting into the session, and a glitch bill, as they call it, to fix the unintended consequences was progressing. I thought it was a good, timely point for us to reiterate some things and be very sharp and pointed about what we'd want to see. What is underused space? Well, if you're a school that teaches the arts and you have a dance studio, that may not be in use all day, but that doesn't mean you can have somebody else having classes there, because then you don't have a dance studio.
Right.
Or the cafeteria may not be used all day, but you can't have classes there, or in the library if you want to have a library.
Right. Let me.
And by the way, they said for free And
Yeah.
that was another issue.
So let me get to that, because you mentioned the charter schools, because I've seen over the last maybe 20 years now where charter schools have gotten a foothold in Florida, and now this is another way where they're inching more and more. So that charter schools actually take money, that taxpayer money, and then people can use it in those charter schools, right?
They are getting some public funding, yes.
Okay. And that also affects under enrollment for you guys, right?
That's a complex issue, and I'm a big believer that, you know, the old saying is complex problems do not, by definition, have simple solutions.
Okay.
Because if they did, they'd be simple problems.
Mm-hmm.
If every charter school in Dade County closed tomorrow, we'd be in trouble.
Okay. Why?
Because a lot of students are there in a lot of facilities, and the district would have a hard time handling all of that. So there's a purpose. I mean, charter schools are considered public schools.
Right. Yes.
They're not
technically.
traditional public schools, but they are public schools. Some of them are run by very legitimate nonprofits. Some of them are run by larger institutions that are essentially run for profit. There's one, for instance, in Aventura that's a whole system. They have 2 schools now, including a high school, Don Sofer Aventura High School, where the land was donated by Don Sofer, the developer of Aventura Mall.
Okay.
And some of the construction was, you know, donated, and so the school board would have had a hard time acquiring land in Aventura, which is extremely expensive, for another public school to relieve Michael Kropp Senior High.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Kropp was a friend of mine. He's a great guy. But we would have had difficulty. So having that done where the school is actually owned and run by the city of Aventura, that's surely not for a profit motive.
Right.
And it is able to serve the Aventura community. Well, I mean, that's a positive thing. So there's a role, and there's a big role for what we call magnet schools that are traditional public schools, but are not what we grew up with everything was a neighborhood school.
Like Mast?
Well, Mast is a good example.
West Lab, right?
iPrep that, you know, focuses on like robotics and things. And there's a New World School of the Arts.
Right.
So, you know, there's a lot of different choices, and, you know, transportation's an issue. I'd like to see a closer relationship between the traditional schools and the charter schools, and the attempt, maybe there was a difficult beginning to that relationship, but the school board has been so deprived of any influence or control of any kind to make sure it is a level playing field, that we're comparing apples to apples, that we judge charter schools as to their success same way that we judge traditional public schools. But I'm not so much hostile to them. I think there needs to be a closer relationship where we interact more. What I have more of a problem with that doesn't get talked about as much is this voucher program, where we're now giving away lots and lots of money almost indiscriminately to private schools.
Right.
Not
that I've
charters.
That's
charters
right.
are, again, are public schools. They take people, but these private schools that cherry pick, that only take people, now they're all getting these vouchers. Look, we had a system of vouchers, the McKay scholarships, they used to call them after a Senate president, to help specifically special needs children, to get them into particular programs that the district does great work with special needs kids, but sometimes there are ones who, there's small populations, it's very expensive for the district to do it, and it made some sense. It wasn't a matter of principle, it was a matter of common sense. It made some sense to have those to help students get exactly what they needed when the school district had trouble providing it and would have been at great expense. But to now have them indiscriminately and drain all this money out of the public school system, that's a problem.
And then some of these, well, I think, was there a difference? Some of these are private nonprofits, but some of those are private for-profits, or they're just all
a lot
nonprofit?
of the privates are for profit.
Yeah.
But listen, a lot of them are religious schools, and I'm not hostile to religious schools, but the public is not supposed to be funding religious schools. Now, there's a caveat to everything, and that's why I say these are. When we start talking about safety, I want every school child in our county to be safe. And in our current environment, I mean, the state has voted some money, particularly to help with security at Jewish schools.
Okay.
I certainly support that. But the same is true for other kinds of religious schools. And you could have problems, not just if you're a Muslim school, those are targets too, but there certainly, there's been some ferment. There's some people who have strong feelings about the Catholic Church. If there's a substantial threat, if it's a credible threat that we need to protect, and even if it's just a straight private school, I know some of those are for wealthy kids, but if help is needed for safety, for security, with the terrible things we see today, with this horrible, insane gun violence that we seem unable to do anything about, I support money for security, but other than that, we should not be subsidizing private schools, whether they're religious or not, or they're just, if they're elite, or if they're, some of them are serving a particular population and that needs them. I'm not against them. I just think we don't give public money there.
That's a valid point. So we've got about 8 minutes left. I want to. We never showed Rachel. I that was my bad. Let's show your district map, because I want people to understand. So this is your district, District 3. Yeah. It goes all the way up to Aventura, right?
Where I live. And it goes, and Sunny Isles and Golden Beach.
All of Miami Beach?
Sunny Isles Beach. They'll be mad at me if I don't say that. Sunny
Isles Beach.
All the way down through Miami, to Miami Beach, Bay Harbor, Bow Harbor, Surfside, and then all the way down North Bay Village and where I was mayor, the beach, and then it goes across. It's got almost all the upper east side of Miami, east of US 1 with a couple exceptions, and then it goes all of Brickell, and then into Coconut Grove. It goes all the way. So it's a coastal,
it's a big district.
It's a long district.
Let me ask you this. It's kind of an aside, because I saw this, and I'm curious. It's a different situation. So you saw the Miami-Dade College giving away property, right? Is there any chance that Miami-Dade Public Schools will be giving away any property to anybody anytime soon?
Yes, but probably not that one, at least not in my view. I'll just listen. I don't mind. It's not my issue. But if they want to have a presidential library here in Dade County, well, I mean, okay, but I don't see why that would have to be on very precious waterfront land with a view of Biscayne Bay. The people going to the presidential library going inside. I mean, if they wanted to put it in a place like Doral, I like Doral, and
there's a big golf course there. I think they could put it.
They have a lot of land out there, and I think that people would be just as, I know Doral would like it. I'm sure if that happened, and I'm sure there's plenty of land. Wouldn't have to be there. It could be maybe Fontainebleau Park. There's a lot of places that aren't on the waterfront, next to the Freedom Tower, which is a real symbol of freedom, particularly for a lot of Cuban Americans in this country, like my wife, that it's a powerful symbol of freedom. And, I just thought that wasn't the best property. It's not the idea of making some property available for a presidential library. I'm not a big fan of this president, but he's the president. I could see, and maybe even some public school land, but they seem to have a lot of money for that library. Perhaps they could pay some compensation. But I'm
Yeah.
not against supporting it. I didn't think it was the best location.
Well, I'm getting more at the school system. School system's hurting for money. Obviously, you could use a
Very
lot more
much
money. The teachers, I think the UTD, United Teachers of Dade, has asked for a minimum salary. I'm not sure.
We've just reached an agreement with Miami teachers,
Okay.
with the United Teachers of Dade, a great union. I'm very supportive of them because they fight not just for our teachers. They fight for all the employees with their other unions they work together with, and they fight to protect our students. But, we've reached agreements with them, with AFSCME, with several others. I think we've got one more union we're trying to reach an agreement with. I'm happy that we have labor peace. I think that's a good thing. But I'll say this about the school board. We have property. We're beginning to look at novel ways to use the property we have. And one in particular is there's a new school downtown, Southside, and they're incorporating some housing for teachers. And I would like to see, but the district is moving to doing a lot more of that we can have affordable or workforce housing where the school has land, still preserve a field where kids can go out and play. I was a big supporter in Tallahassee of making sure kids had recess. They're children. They're not little robots.
Oh, yeah, great question. I almost missed this question. We had a Noah over here that goes to West Lab had a question. In schools, like when they get rid of, like they had sports before and they got rid of it and stuff. How is it all just money?
It is in part money, yeah. I mean, and that's a problem. It goes back to your question you asked me about declining enrollment.
Yeah.
We're way down. We don't think most of that, from what I've heard, it's not like, they're going to charters instead. It's really mostly not even like, they're taking these vouchers and going to private schools. I won't say there's not any of that, but our magnet schools are very competitive, and our neighborhood schools are, by and large, very good. A lot of it's related to immigration.
Yeah.
There's just so many parents now that are afraid to send their kids. Their status, even if their status is okay, and sometimes it's not, but even if it is, they look, there's racial profiling.
Yes.
And they're afraid their kids are going to be grabbed. They're going to have to fight to get them back, or worse, if there's some question about their status.
So the kids just stay home?
They just stay home.
And sometimes unsupervised, I would assume.
I guess if the parents have to work, who's there with the kids? And in the meantime, they're not only not learning, but it costs us unbelievable amounts of money. We're in a budget crunch. And things, we have to have a balanced budget. This is the state. You can't deficit finance here.
Well, now
Not
you said
allowed.
I know, but the thing that gets me is the state had $500 million for Alligator Alcatraz, but it doesn't have an extra $80 million for the school district, or that could go a long way.
I can't say anything about that you could allow on TV. The language I would use to describe that would be not suitable for broadcast. So,
Rachel, you know how to beep? No?
You said it very well, and I'll stick with your statement that makes no sense. The notion that, look, I don't think money solves all the problems, but it sure solves some of them. It sure allows you to pay decent salaries to people that deserve to be treated like professionals.
Sure.
And it also allows you to make sure that you can have enrichments for some kids. If there's not an arts program or a music program, that's the thing that ties them to the school.
Right.
That's what makes them want to come and still be there. For some kids, it's some kind of we have some technical education schools. Kids are looking for jobs. And if we offer that, we give them a reason to stay. And if we don't, if it doesn't meet their needs, they leave. Now, we have a very high graduation rate. We're in the mid-90s. I mean, this district does a great job in a lot of ways, but the interference that we're getting from the state government, which seems dedicated to the legislature seems dedicated to telling local governments, including school boards, but also cities and counties, how to do everything. And I served in that body. I have a lot of friends from the legislature, a lot of friends on both sides of the aisle, but I used to tell them, don't think you got smarter when you walked in this building, because the people who serve at local government levels are just as smart as you, and often they're more in tune with what your constituents really want.
Wow. Well, that's a great way to end there, because I'll tell you, I've thought about that as a donor county and what your thoughts were, and we could do another half hour just on that. Folks, you've been watching Localized Miami. Our guest today has been Joe Geller, School Board Member, District 3. Rachel, show up. We've got a couple other folks coming up. You might know them. Xavier Cortada, the artist.
Oh, I just saw him 2 days ago.
Oh,
Great guy,
Yeah, March 13th at 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. And then we got Bruce Torkel. He's a motivational speaker, author. He's been on CNN, Fox News. Wonderful guy. He's a consultant, and I'm excited about getting him. And thank you.
Xavier is a great guest. Make sure he actually shows you some of his brilliant art that he creates. Yes. Thanks for having me, Robert.
Thank you very much. Great to have you. Thank you, folks. See you again on February 13th with Localized Miami.